Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
It's good to be here.
So today, we are wading deep into the constant reader community.
We really are.
Because the sheer volume of conversation that we've found surrounding Stephen King's 2025 novel, Never Flinch, it's remarkable.
It truly is. And this isn't just, buzz about a new release. This is the 7th book in an ongoing saga.
Right, focusing on his beloved and sometimes controversial private eye, Holly Gibney.
So we've synthesized everything. The plot mechanics, the author's own insights into its, challenging production, and the really intense, often contradictory reasons for its mixed reception.
Okay, so let's frame this for you. Our mission is to unpack the complexity of this huge twin narrative in Never Flinch.
And also to understand why King felt so compelled to keep writing Holly.
And then analyze why this specific structure, this choice he made, earned both praise for its ambition and a lot of criticism for its execution.
And we have to start with that context. I mean, this is Holly's latest novel, but she started as a pretty secondary character way back in the Mr. Mercedes trilogy.
Then she evolved, almost reluctantly, through The Outsider, then the novella If It Bleeds, and of course Holly in 2023.
And King himself famously said she was only meant to be a walk-on character.
But she stole a book and stole my heart.
Yeah.
That quote is so telling, isn't it? When a character steals your heart, it's not about the plot anymore. It's about wanting to spend more time with them.
Exactly. And you can feel that connection creating some real creative pressure, especially, 7 books deep.
And that pressure, it seems, fundamentally changed King's usual writing process for Never Flinch.
It did. And this is where the sources give us a really rare insight into his method. He revealed that this was one of the very few novels he actually plotted out in detail before he started writing.
Wait, Stephen King, the guy who famously just puts characters in a room to see what happens, he structured this one in advance?
Meticulously. Which really suggests the story was just too massive, too interconnected to be written by the seat of his pants.
That makes sense.
He even admitted why. The scope was just enormous. The book's initial title was We Think Not. Huh? And the fan notes suggest that was probably a nod to the sheer effort it took to keep all the threads straight. King told a podcast that the book was getting incredibly long because there were just too many stories going on.
It sounds less like he was writing a story and more like he was managing an ecosystem.
He used the analogy of a mad juggler just frantically trying to keep all the narrative balls in the air.
And when you look at the final product, with these two totally separate investigations that had to slam together at the end, that analogy is perfect.
And we should be clear, this book isn't just a thriller. It's deeply rooted in contemporary America.
Okay.
It's a crime novel, but it comments very explicitly on the political and social landscape, the aftermath of the pandemic, the fight for women's and reproductive rights.
So it's very much of the moment.
Exactly, which is a fascinating choice, and as we'll see, that choice became a real flashpoint for some readers.
Okay, so to understand that juggling act, we have to look at the two narratives. King basically paired a story of, judicial rage with a story of political fanaticism.
That's the key. And to set the stage, we've got returning characters like Jerome and Barbara Robinson, and new players like Detective Izzy Jaynes and the activist Kate McKay.
So let's start with the first thread. The surrogate juror murders.
This kicks off in Buckeye City. Detective Izzy Jaynes gets a letter from someone calling himself Bill Wilson.
Chilling.
Yeah. He threatens to kill 13 innocents and one guilty to atone for the death of a man named Alan Duffrey, who was wrongfully convicted and then killed in prison.
And the killer, Trigg, who does he turn out to be?
His real name is Donald Gibson, and he was actually one of the jurors on that original Duffrey trial.
Wow. So it's misplaced rage.
Completely. He thinks he's enacting justice for a systemic failure, and his method is, it's disturbing. He kills random people, but he places the names of the other jurors on the bodies.
As surrogate targets.
Exactly. It's his way of getting his wrath out there without, directly confronting the people he blames.
But why surrogates? Does he struggle with direct confrontation?
He does, and that's where King gets into the deep psychology of it. Trigg likens his urge to kill to his alcoholism.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he even goes to AA meetings. And as the killings escalate, he starts having these layered, extended conversations with a hallucination of his deceased abusive father.
So the victims aren't just surrogates for the jurors, they're surrogates for his own trauma.
That's it. It's personal, trauma-fueled madness.
Okay, so that's one side. Now for the other.
Yeah.
The societal, politically charged madness in the stalking of Kate McKay.
Right. And Kate is this very controversial women's rights activist. She's on a book tour promoting a book on feminism and reproductive rights, which brings Holly directly into the story.
As her bodyguard.
Right. And her main adversary is a man named Christopher Stewart Chris, an agent for the Real Christ Holy Church, a group that protests against progressive rights.
And he has this split identity, which is such a classic king-villain move.
It really is, but it's a tragic one. He sometimes presents as his deceased sister, Christine, or Chrissy.
And how did that happen?
The sister died when they were children, and a deacon from the church apparently exploited that psychological vulnerability, twisting Chris into this weaponized fanatic who's targeting Kate.
And Holly gets hired as Kate's bodyguard, but she ends up sympathizing with Kate's assistant, Corey, who's being mistreated.
Right, so you have these two totally separate plot lines. A serial killer driven by judicial rage and trauma, and a fanatic stalker driven by political manipulation and a split personality.
Both barreling towards the same point. That pre-plotting we talked about starts to make a lot of sense.
It was absolutely necessary for the finale. And the sources detail this frantic convergence at a place called Holman Rink. This is where the juggling act pays off.
Or tries to.
Well, it's certainly spectacular. Trigg kidnaps both Corey and Barbara Robinson. He and Chris's other personality both converge at the rink, waiting for Kate for different reasons.
And it all just explodes.
It does. It's chaos. Trigg kills Chrissy, kicks the body, and then starts fighting Kate while yelling at the hallucination of his dead father.
And Holly and Jerome swoop in.
Just in time. They trick and kill Trigg, who has started a fire in the rink. They get everyone out, narrowly escaping the blaze themselves.
It's a very high-stakes conclusion.
Yeah.
And the sources say some fans found it really effective. They praised the density of it.
Some called it pretty well done.
But if he was such a master juggler, the mixed reviews suggest maybe he dropped a ball or two.
That's a good way to put it, because despite that detailed convergence, the reaction was really polarized.
Okay, let's get into the analysis. The consensus seems to be that a lot of people found the book middle of the road.
Or just generally flat. That it lacked that visceral life King usually injects into his worlds.
Which brings us right to the debate over what people are calling Holly fatigue.
Yeah. The theory is that maybe people are just tired of the character. But a lot of fans, even ones who loved her before, said the real problem was the structure.
Too many side characters.
Exactly. They called it a Holly book co-starring Holly. Too much focus on Barbara, Izzy, Kate, and Corey, which diluted Holly's own story.
But hold on, isn't that kind of sprawling, multi-threaded plot what people loved about his big books like It or The Stand?
That's the key question, isn't it? Is the critique really about complexity or about an uneven complexity?
Meaning?
Meaning the focus on the surrogate juror murders and the political stalking just consumed too much energy, and it leads directly to the core complaints about the plotting itself.
Okay, let's get specific. The sources use words like tortured and contrived to describe the climax. Why?
It comes down to coincidence. For two completely different murderers, Trigg and Chris, with completely different motives, to choose the exact same public space.
Holman Rink.
On the exact same night to carry out their separate plans. For many readers, it just strained credulity too far.
It sounds less like a juggling act and more like just smashing two plots together.
Some reviewers called the situations ridiculous and the plotting absurd. The argument was that King sacrificed internal logic for an artificially spectacular ending.
And that criticism seems to extend to Holly's character arc as well, this idea of regression.
Yes.
I mean, she's faced down cannibals. She's killed a man with a sock full of ball bearings.
Yeah.
Why are fans now saying she's constantly doubting herself about the simplest things?
It's a valid frustration for readers who've been with her the whole way. They feel her confidence should be established by now.
Right.
Critics pointed to scenes where she's just paralyzed by self-doubt over minor choices, despite having crossed these huge psychological barriers in earlier books.
Is there a counter-argument? Why would King dial her back?
The defense is that he might be trying to represent her mental struggles more realistically. We know Holly is neurodivergent. She struggles with anxiety.
So even after fighting monsters, the real-world doubt doesn't just disappear.
Exactly. It can flare up under stress. It's a nuanced, realistic take, but it definitely frustrated fans who wanted to see a clear, linear path of empowerment.
The fascinating divide. Now, we have to touch on the social and political elements because that was a major point of critique. And again, just to be clear for you listening, we're impartially reporting on the fan comments here.
Right. A number of readers felt that King shoehorned his views into the story, that the references to post-pandemic mental health or the details on reproductive rights felt unnatural.
A bit too heavy-handed for them.
That was the perception, that it stopped the narrative flow. Others focused their criticism on the villains.
Saying they were, what, paper thin?
Antiquated cliches was another phrase used. The idea was that while the psychological hooks were unique, the hallucinated father, the split identity, the core motivations of judicial rage and political fundamentalism felt a little familiar.
And to be fair, that's a criticism that has followed King throughout his career.
It has. It suggests that when the structure feels a little shaky, the characters have to bear all the weight, and for some readers, these villains just couldn't carry that load.
Okay, so we have structural issues, character dilution, and commentary that didn't land with everyone. Let's try to place Never Flinch in the series arc, because the fan rankings tell a really interesting story.
The polarization is so clear in the rankings we saw. One fan ranked Never Flinch pretty highly, 4th overall.
Behind which books?
The Outsider, Holly, and the original Mr. Mercedes. But another fan we saw ranked it dead last, way below everything else.
Is there any common ground in those opinions? An anchor.
The one consistent thing is that The Outsider and Mr. Mercedes almost always rank near the top.
Which suggests that readers prefer either the more tightly focused crime stories or the ones where the supernatural is blended in seamlessly.
Exactly. The Outsider was lauded for that blend, but some fans were not happy when End of Watch, the end of the Hodges trilogy, went full supernatural horror.
And Never Flinch seems to be pushing even further in that direction.
It really does, because while most of the book is a straight crime thriller, the very final scene, the hook for the next book, leans hard into the non-realistic.
Tell us about that. What's the final turn that suggests things are about to get a lot darker?
Well, the sources say the final scene is set after all the chaos is over. The janitor at the Mingo Auditorium, where Trigg worked, he hears Trigg's voice lingering, arguing with the voice of his dead, abusive father.
So not psychological residue. This is a literal haunting.
It strongly suggests that the evil Trigg unleashed has taken on a literal, lingering existence.
That is a huge setup. It forces Holly and the reader right back into supernatural territory. Okay, let's try to summarize our deep dive.
Never Flinch is, without a doubt, a highly plotted, ambitious crime thriller. It's praised for the way its storylines converge, but it's also widely criticized for that very same complexity.
Which led to narrative overload and a sense that Holly, the main character, was diluted or had even regressed.
It confirms King's dedication to the character, even as he himself admitted he struggled to juggle all the parts. And the result is a book that's, brilliant in concept, but pretty polarizing in execution.
So what does this all mean for Holly's future? Given that final twist where the killer's voice literally lingers and you factor in the fan critique about her self-doubt even after facing monsters, does this mean Holly Gibney is being deliberately pushed away from the straightforward mysteries of her past? Is King setting her up for a full, terrifying immersion into the darker, more existential side of his universe where every killer she defeats leaves a literal haunting she has to overcome? That's something for you to mull over until our next deep dive.